Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the session. Thank you for being a part of this amazing conference, this virtual time for us to come together and turn ideas into action and impact the world for good. My name is Brittany King. Some of you joined me on the opening keynote session. I am a self-proclaimed hope dealer, and I'm going to shorten the rest of my bio and just say I am an obstacle overcomer. And I'm super excited to be here as we talk about I want to give you some actionable strategies today about how we can propel with purpose, right? Where we can start in light of COVID-19 and how we can sustain our enthusiasm, because I don't want it to be just that we just talk about making change and we talk about all the good things that can be done and we do nothing about it, right? We are change makers here and we are action takers. So I want to set your expectation for how this time with me will work. I'm going to give you some strategy and some things that you can do to move forward and to move into change and action in COVID-19, climate, and beyond. And I want you to enter questions that you have for me into the section. On the side of your screen, there's a section that says questions. Just go ahead and start typing your questions in about how you can propel forward in COVID-19. So I will give some strategies and then we'll open up the floor and we'll have kind of a dialogue about Q&A because I want this to be interactive. I think there have been so many amazing sessions just today and there's a lot of information. And what I do not want to happen is for you guys to have this kind of information overwhelm and feel stuck. I want to give you the freedom to move and to enact change. So when we talk about propelling forward, right, we are all going the distance and taking flight in light of COVID-19. And I want us to think about what the word propel means. We all know that a plane, in order to take flight, they need to be able to propel and move forward. So I'm going to tell you what this definition is, right? It's to drive forward or onward, as is by means of force that imparts motion. I'm going to read that again. Propel means to drive forward or onward by or as if by means of a force that imparts motion. I want all of us in this conference to consider ourselves a part of the action, a part of the propellers in this world, in this global pandemic. We stand before the pandemic and we propel. We move forward. I used to tell people, some of you guys heard my keynote speech and I talked about how I kicked cancer in the teeth. And one of the things I would always say is, I have cancer. Cancer doesn't have me. And some people felt a little aversion to me saying that. They're like, stop saying that. You're giving cancer so much power. And I would always come back and say, every single thing, all of the power that cancer tried to will over my life, I took it back. And so I want you guys to say, we have COVID-19, we have today, and we have this moment. So I want to give you kind of an acronym for how we can fly in the COVID 2019 and beyond. So for F, we're going to use the word find, and I want you guys to write this down. I did not do slides because I want you engaged with me here. F stands for find. I need each and every one of you to write this down. I want you to find what your action will be. I want you to find what your action will be. We are all hurting. We are all impacted by COVID-19 in some way. We are all people who are responsible for how we choose to respond to this global crisis and this global pandemic. If you heard my keynote speech before, I mentioned to you guys how I went back to undergraduate school and I had my toddler in tow, under 2 at the time. And I did all of these things. I was like, man, I have to change the situation. No, but nothing's coming to bail me out, right? Nothing's coming to change the trajectory of my life. And so I remember when we lived in the projects, and I mentioned this, we lived in an area that was really, I was on welfare, and it was Section 8 housing. And it was so bad, and I mentioned this before, that the pizza places, I remember calling for the first time and saying, hey, I want to order a pizza. They said, where do you live? I gave them my address. They said, we don't deliver out there. It's not safe enough. And here I am, a single mom, a woman with my daughter. And so I remember around the time that Thanksgiving was getting ready to come, I was getting ready to go back home to Houston with my family. And I was looking for a way that I could impact the world and just do my part. This is why I said F, find your action. I remember looking around me in my neighborhood and saying, I don't have anything, but what I have is my time, I have my talents, and I have the things that I treasure in my heart. So I took my daughter, who was under 2 at that time, and we went to this big warehouse where they were packing boxes for families in need. And it's so interesting because I remember my daughter, she was on the macaroni line, right? And she was responsible for putting macaroni into boxes that would go to families in need. And I very clearly explained to her, and perhaps she didn't understand at the time, but I was planting the seeds for her to know, we need one of these boxes. And we didn't get one. We needed one, but I needed her to know we were going to give our time to other people who were just like us, who were hurting, who were scared, who perhaps didn't know how they were going to celebrate Thanksgiving. So many of us in America, if you're listening from America, we take this approach that things should just be right. Why is COVID here? Things should work for us. We're such a powerful company, such a powerful organization. Why aren't things working for us? And I think that for people who hard times is kind of their norm, difficult situations is what they view as the common denominator in their days, they take those things more seriously. When I went through and beat cancer, I remember having this renewed sense for the smallest things, just like flowers. I had always been a girl who's like, I don't like flowers, but the fragrance, the aroma, the hue of flowers suddenly became so beautiful to me. So I'm telling you that story because in the midst of what we're going through right now with COVID-19, in the midst of all of us being impacted, we need to find a place to take action. One of the greatest ways for you to do that is for you to volunteer. Find something. I always tell people to consider the things that outrage them. Consider the things that they're convicted about, the injustices, the inequities, right? The disparities that lie between people, even just people in need. I want you to think about those things. Find how you're going to take action. Now, some of you may be thinking, how can I do that at home? I'm in my house, right? What am I going to do to enact change? How can I do that right now at this moment? What does that even look like? There are organizations out there like Volunteer Match. I want you to write that down and Google that. Volunteer Match will afford you the opportunity to virtually donate your time, your talents, and the things you treasure, right? You'll be able to connect all of those three things to give back. So I want you to really consider that. And in that same vein, we're thinking about finding our action. I also want to encourage you to just do random acts of kindness. I remember right when COVID was kind of on this uptick of the world becoming aware of how much we were going to be impacted and how serious this was. And I went to the grocery store. As someone who is immunocompromised after cancer treatment, I went ahead of the curve because I knew, hey, I need a lot of food. I have children. I have to make sure that I'm okay. And I remember people being so nasty and mean. I remember feeling like in a time where we should be coming together, we're falling apart. And I know there's this saying, everyone's saying we have to social distance. I believe we need to debunk that. We need to defy those orders in the sense of we are not social distancing. We are physically distancing. Practice physical distancing, but stay socially connected. You have something that the world needs, and you can find your action and make your change. Also, I want to talk to you about the letter L in FLY. So we talked about find your action. I'm giving you an acronym for how you can impact and sustain change. I want you to learn what to do with the door. L stands for learning what to do with the door. This will help you fly because so many of us run into doors and they are closed. And we find a lot of frustration around them being closed. And we don't understand, oh my gosh, the door is closed. That opportunity closed. That door closed for me. As someone who works in talent acquisition and human resources, there are a lot of job offers, perhaps, that are being rescinded right now or that are not moving forward. So when a door is closed, what do? I just really want you guys to know that every closed door is not locked. Sometimes you have to open the door. And how you open that door, we talked about this in my opening keynote, is that you find opportunity inside of every change. Remember, I mentioned to you guys that change is neutral. It's neutral. It is not inherently good or bad. Can it have negative ramifications? Absolutely. Does it have opportunity sometimes that can catapult you forward? Sure. So I want you to make sure when you come to a closed door, see if it'll open. You have to open the door. And I want to give you an example, right? A tangible example of how you can do that. In 2008, I was graduating from college, which was a feat in and of itself because I barely graduated high school. I literally graduated by the skin of my teeth because of my lack of interest in education at that time. So when I was graduating right in the middle of an economic kind of depression, right? It was they call it the Great Recession. That was in 2008. And we're here in 2020 and we're looking at what a lot of people are calling the Great Lockdown. I remember thinking, okay, I did all this work. I went to school. I took my kid with me. I didn't get to go to the parties. I didn't get to have all the fun that people have in college. I did the work. And as soon as I graduate, here we are in a recession. And what is interesting about that is that recession kind of began in 2006 is when you started to see the swing of things becoming difficult and graduates were not finding jobs. We were not in a position where we felt like we were going to be able to do what we had worked so hard for, to use our degrees to impact the world. At least that was my desire. I remember the last year of college, I have a degree in psychology. One of my professors said, hey, I have an internship for you at the city. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, I got you a job. You need to go be an intern in human resources. I understand you're a psychology major, but you need to learn how to integrate that with business and the corporate world. So I went to this internship and they had a meeting where they brought in the speaker who was a very prominent human resources consultant at that time. This is 2008. And he did a speech. We were at the Chamber of Commerce for the city that I was in. And he did a speech. And I remember thinking, I want to be him one day. Not only do I want to be him, but I want to show up in the world in a way that people listen when I speak. Because I looked at the tables around me and there were all of these influential people who were sitting at the tables listening to this man deliver information around human resources, consulting, change management, employee relations, all of those things. So here I am, 2008, I was getting ready to graduate, no job prospects, and I'm sitting at the table as an intern. I'm taking notes, doing my intern duties, and he finished his speech, and I waited, and I saw him talk to different people. I saw him talk to the heads of companies and the CEOs and all of those things. And I saw that time as my opportunity. The door had been closed because of the recession. So there were not an abundance of jobs that were available. But I decided, okay, closed door, you're going to open for me. And so I went to this gentleman after his speech and I said, hi, my name is Brittany King, and I want to work for you. And I'm certain that I can add value to your organization. How can I apply for the job? And what do I need to do to get it? And so, and I'm paraphrasing there, he looked at me almost flabbergasted that I had the temerity to come to him and to make that statement, unwavering. I did not shrink back. I stood shoulders wide and head up to let him know I would be an asset to your organization. And he looked at me and he said, I don't have any openings right now, but send me your resume. So I sent him my resume. Didn't get a job, graduated with no career prospects. But about 2 months later, he called me. He said, hey, I want you to work for me. We just let someone go and I want you to work for me. I was very impressed with the way that you presented yourself and the way that you came to me as a college student looking for an opportunity. So I almost in an instant moved from single mom, welfare, struggling, and the projects to this area of opportunity where it opened the door for me to propel. And I'm going to keep saying that as I talk to you guys out with this speech. If you do not take anything away from this entire conference, a lot of doors have been closed in all of our lives. Open some doors, create your opportunity, take action. I don't want you guys to theorize, right? I don't want you to think just theoretically or intellectually about how we can make change. I don't want you to be excited about this speech. I'm not interested in you feeling inspired. I want you to take action. And that's why the last letter in this acronym is Y. You have got to learn to yield to change. So first, you find your action. Then you learn to open the door. And then you yield to change. Many of us are so resistant to changing times or so resistant to changing situations. We get so comforted with the way that things are that we just innately don't like when things change. I have found that in times of change have been when have been most successful. When things have happened that I perhaps didn't want to happen, or when I was just comfortable with the way that things were and I was pushed. Sometimes you're pushed. If you don't jump when it's time for you to jump and find your action and learn to open the door, you will be pushed. So I encourage you to proactively start to yield to change. And I want to give you an example of how this works. Now, I mentioned my human resources career and all of that. In 2014, I had found what I thought was my dream job. And I was so excited. And I remember starting at my job and I was making way more money than I had made before. I was like, oh my gosh, I am doing well. After 4 weeks on that job, we had a meeting, just like we had every week. It said, everyone come to the meeting room. And I went. And they said, effective immediately, you all are laid off. You are no longer employed here. And I felt a gut punch to my stomach because I was so sick and tired of being on this roller coaster and this cycle of struggle and change. I just wanted to be comfortable. Change has catapulted me to some of the most beautiful places that I've been. In 2012, I was at Clinton Global Initiative University, and I had the opportunity to ask former President Bill Clinton and Jon Stewart a question. Jon Stewart was moderating. Bill Clinton had made the comment, President Bill Clinton, he said, you all in this room are the best of the best, and you're the brightest of the brightest. And I picked up the mic and I said, how do we address the fact that talent is universal, but opportunity is not? I didn't get here because someone told me about it. I didn't have anyone push me here. How do we kind of balance the scales? And he looked at me and he said, how did you get through it? How did you do it? And I said, I really believe I had some people around me, but at the end of the day, it was my determination and resilience that pushed me forward. So I want you to go back and think about what I was saying about the time that I got laid off. 4 weeks on a job that was my dream job. And I woke up one day and I said to myself, this is going to be the day that I don't whine about this. And I said, I'm going to do something outside of the box and crazy that no one has ever done, or perhaps I just thought no one had done it. So I went to LinkedIn and I put a post. I said, I'm turning the tables on this change in my life. I am no longer looking for someone to hire me. I'm accepting applications for my next employer. And I titled that post, Now Interviewing My Next Employer, Fresh Prince version. And if any of you are familiar with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I kind of wrote some words that were to his rap, the theme song of that show. And within hours, probably minutes, people were messaging me. CEOs of companies, heads of departments, we want to talk to you. And by the next day, I had secured a job opportunity that allowed me to nearly double my salary and work from home. You have to learn to yield to change.